Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lives podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co-host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. On this week's episode, we'd like to talk to you about auditing your time in your relationship. We want to talk a little bit deeper about what the reality is versus your perception of how you're spending your time and what you might claim is most important to you.
And before we jump all the way into the episode, we just want to encourage you to lean into community. With that being said, you can hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, searching Marriage is Tougher. If you have any questions, any comments, you can slide in the DMs on Instagram and we'll respond back there. Also, you can reach us at our site, marriageistopher.com. If you would like to be a guest on the show, there's a contact form you can click on, put your information in, what you'd like to talk about, and we'll reach back out to you to set that up. So now let's get right into the episode.
All right, man. So you're the one who brought this topic up. Why is this so important to you to want to audit your time in your marriage?
It is, I think an audit is, I think it's a rhythm that I'm trying to do in all aspects of my life, right? Is make sure that yearly, bi-yearly, quarterly, I'm checking in, am I doing what I say I'm doing? Whether it's with my family time, whether it's time with my wife, whether it's where I'm spending my money, whether it's work-related, church-related, community-related. We're really trying to hang out with couples, so we want to make sure we are setting aside a time to, go out to dinner or have people over. So it just, I think, was a natural check for me. And then when I thought about it, I was like, man, we should probably do that more as husbands, is just make sure what we say we're doing and what we want to do time-wise lines up. So that is important, because you want to make sure that it all comes down to intentionality. So we have to be intentional to make the things work that we want to work. Otherwise, life just happens. So that's why it's important, I think, to sum it all up.
Yeah. It's, I think, a good way to check yourself. If you have that mindset, right? So it's a short story. When my wife started coming to me and asking me to spend more time at home, if I had went into that situation initially having this attitude, it probably would have been a much quicker and easier transition for me, right? But I was very resistant to her request at first, simply because I thought I was doing what I needed to be doing, right? And for that reason, I kind of drug my feet in making some changes that I needed to make out in the world, in my business, at work. I think it took a combination of her and my children, either speaking to me or making comments about why I wasn't home, that really started that ball moving, which led me to even really taking a look at how I was actually spending my time, right? So we say the word audit. That initially wasn't how I looked at it. I just kind of shrugged it off, like, I'm doing this for us. Like, what? You know what I mean? But then I would also turn around, like you said, and claim that my family was most important to me. And so that begs the question: is it always the case that the bulk of my time needs to be spent on what is most important? And the reason I ask that is this. We're still going through a time where there are some goals we're trying to accomplish. My wife understands that. My kids probably not so much, but I understand it. And with that being said, a lot of these financial goals require a lot of time to be spent outside of the home and away from the family. I am not only beginning, but um, starting to draw my time back even further. But, I can see the value of that time that I spent and how it got us closer to our goal. And I think that just for the fact that my wife and I had this conversation and had, a plan in place, have a plan in place in order to put some, I don't want to say time restraints, but, you know, um, an end date to be able to accomplish our goal. Um, we can, start now to see that finish line, and it makes it a little bit less painful, I'll say. Um, so in my opinion, there are times where that is necessary, and there are times that it's not. But I think that specifically in the phase of life that we're in right now, it's most important that with the time that I do have, or that the time that I have committed to the family, that be focused time.
No, that's all that you said is good, right? Because when you do an audit, you see just what it is. The data proves itself, right? So this is the time we're spent. But you also then you evaluate that data. So what I hear you saying is um, your family is your most important. But the thing about it is you're not just auditing this by yourself, right? So it's you and your
Mhm.
wife. So you and your wife have now said this amount of time with my family is acceptable, but this time away from the family might need to be more because we're have our financial goals. So at least you're both on the same page. So it's not that it's just it's not time. It's not a black and white time spent with the family is has to be this many hours, right? That you make up yourself. It's hey babe, how much time is this knowing that we also have this goal. So right now it's there's not really a and I think we have to be careful about what's most important because right now it's kind of like most important is we're trying to reach these financial goals and have this quality family time, right? So and again, it's for a time period, so you maybe have less family time, but you're crushing your financial goals, and then once that's done, you now get to totally flip that and that's what you're doing it for so you can have them more and it's understandable between both of you right before you were just working hard by yourself this is what we need to do this is what I need to do for the family without having a conversation and if you've ever sat in a room with um uh who are the accountants right like if you go into a firm and accountants are doing an audit it's not just one person right? It's like a team of people doing it. So you have multiple sets of eyes on multiple areas, and then they come together and write up a report. But they all converse and or write their part out, and then they someone looks over it, and then they present it to the company. So it's not just one person's idea. So I think it's good to audit your time as husband, but then present it to your wife and say, "Hey, am I missing anything? This is what I'm thinking." Um, and then you both can decide what's best. So that way there is no uh, unclear focus. There's no miscommunication on what you're trying to do, and that way you can give her what she needs, and she can understand what you need and what you're trying to do. So maybe you do have to pull back, or maybe she'll say, "Oh, we're like 6 months out. Like, could we do it in 4 if you do a little bit more time?" And then now we have 2 more months of way less time you working and you being with the family. So I think it just depends on what the goals are. And
Mhm.
that's up to each marriage and each time because each quarter it could change, each year it could change. what's the focus that we're on, right? So when you're at the end of your financial, this part of your financial journey, like it's going to totally flip. So it won't look like it looks today, a year from now, 2 years from now. So you can address that then.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, as the children get older, their time commitments are going to change as well. And so I'm curious to see how that plays out. Right. So as it stands now, my wife sees that us spending all of this time together as a complete unit is most important. Right. But now we're getting into two of the children having separate responsibilities or obligations, I'll say, outside of the home, outside of school as well. And so if those practices happen at the same time, we're immediately having to split up, and we want to swap and make sure that we're both there for both of the children, to watch and engage with whatever activities they're participating in. Um, so I'm curious to see how her mindset might change on that. Um, because we're going to be tired.
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, but let's dive in, I guess, a little bit more to the audit process, right? What, I guess, in your opinion, what is the best way, other than what we've talked about, right? Your wife needs to be part of the conversation. I guess if we need to sit down and audit on our own, all right? So, all right, a little dangerous territory here, but if I need to sit down and audit on my own, um, maybe have a sort of self-talk, uh, right?
Right.
What am I looking for?
I think the first thing to do is actually map out a day, or I would say maybe a week's worth or a couple weeks worth of time, and say, okay, so outside, well, put your work time in, right? Because that's a blanket. Traditionally, if you're not a small business owner, you have your set time that you're supposed to be on the clock, quote unquote, right? Um, if you do small business owner, then you have to figure out what are my working times. Um, compartmentalize, like when I'm working on work, when I'm checking emails versus when I'm running stuff for the family or whatever. So you have to figure out that work time, whatever that is, put that away. Then, if you have kids, what obligations you have for that? If you have pets, what obligations you have for that? Like, really walk through, each day. Went to work, got off of work, came home. What activities did I do? How long was dinner? Did I even have dinner, or was I eating it on the run? Um, how many times in this 2 week span did I go out with my wife? How many times did we sit down and chat? Right? What day was like really be intentional. Like, hey, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to track these things. And if you can track them real time, either on notes on your phone, if you're old school, or writing it down is better for you. There's tons of apps out there that can log that away, or just make a note, right? 11:45 lunch, you know, 5:15 up dinner in the car, right? Whatever it is.
Mhm.
Then once you have that, it's really just looking back and seeing where was my time spent. And a lot of times you can see without crunching numbers to be like, okay, I spent 4.5 hours, blah, blah, blah. You can see, okay, there's a lot of, you know, going out, a lot of happy hour time, not so much time with my wife, right? A lot of, we went out 4 times. Now let's see if that's acceptable for her, right? Does she want
Yeah.
more? Does she want less? You know, were we able to be intimate at that time? Is that important to us? Right. So do we need to, talk about that? All these different things. And obviously, for whatever that time period is, couple weeks or so, any random factors that wouldn't happen, right? Any special situations, God forbid someone got in a car accident, or, you know, family drama happened that, you needed to give more time to, put all those in consideration. Then you just look through it and figure out, is this where I want to be? I think you put that list next to what is most important that I say is most important in my life.
Mhm.
And that might be the hardest part.
So are we basically just talking about budgeting here? Is that too much? Right? But is that the right way to look at it?
Essentially it's the same, right? Budgeting is auditing, is setting up a financial plan. It's all planning
Mhm.
and then checking to see if your plan is working out with your goals.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know, man. I think for a lot of people, and even in this moment, I'm having this sort of reaction to it when you say, "Oh, I need to, set a budget." I'm like, "Oh, that's gross." Right?
yeah,
Like, I don't want to have to do that because it makes me feel like I don't have enough. Right? But our time is finite. Each day is a specific amount of time, and I think to be most productive with that time, you probably should budget that time. Right?
yeah. I
It
was,
feels terrible to say I can't just do what I want to do. That's ultimately what's happening,
yeah,
right? But I think you actually can, just not, with some things, not as much as you would maybe prefer. But then it goes back to the audit piece. If I'm saying these things are most important to me, right? Already almost half of my day is taken up by work. And I feel like I don't necessarily have a choice in that.
right. Everything else you have to choose. And technically, you do have that choice, right? It's
Right.
you're choosing to go to work to that job, right?
Right. Yeah, you
And
are.
if you don't like that job, then you have to make the choice to what do I need to do to find a different job, career, whatever. And then you have to make the choice to do those things, and then you have to make that choice to look for another job, go to interviews, all those things. They are in essence a choice. Yes, we do need a job. Well, we do need money to survive in this world, but we get to choose how we bring that money in. So
Right.
yeah, I feel what you're saying. Back to what you're saying about the budget. I was listening to a podcast, and it was talking about someone who declutters. Right, she's got famous, wrote a blog that blew up, and now she's helping people declutter and all that. But what she was talking about was containers, right? Um, and she was saying that, I used to think everyone that has this, I used to see all these people that were organized that had all these containers and everything was in a space. So I just thought I had to buy more containers. She said, but in essence, I ran out of shelf space, like literal space in my house for all these containers. And I realized container has the word contain. So there's only a finite space that you can put whatever's that container can hold. So you have to
Mhm.
decide what you can put in and what you can take out. So if we look at our lives as containers, like we only have a certain amount of time. So we have to figure out what are we going to contain in our time. So you can't do everything, right, at the same time. So you have to figure out what am I going to put my time into? What's the opportunity cost? What am I going to lose? Or what do I need to remove for that time? So
Mhm.
that is what it is. Because she was saying like I can buy more stuff, but I can't put it anywhere. If I have to put something into this bin, I have to take something out of this bin to make space for it. And when you think like that, you really evaluate, and it's not just a flippant decision. Like, oh, that's a nice jacket that I might never wear. Oh, but if I only have this much closet space, then I have to remove something to add that jacket. It's like, I really like all my jackets that I have. I don't need this jacket now. Right. So, same thing with our time. Okay. Only have 24 hours in a day. So, what are we going to do with that time? And now we have to make a choice. And that may seem heavy, but it's more just being more intentional. We're not used to being intentional in all areas of our lives. So if we start to be more intentional, it actually releases the anxiety that we have because we know what we're doing and we know it's important and we know why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. That container analogy, I think, for me goes a little bit deeper, right? Because we see a container, but when you're talking about things like jackets and, things that could be mashed down, we can overfill the container, right? But then if you think about it, like, what's the first thing I put in the container? And then all these other things on top of it. It's not convenient to get to that first thing that I put in, right? So now it's in the container, but I'm very rarely going to even look at it, let alone touch it.
Hmm.
So if we think about that in comparison to our time or the things that we try to, dedicate our time to, great. Yeah. Hey, I'll commit to that, but am I actually going to make it? Right? Am I going to be able to do that consistently? And typically the answer is no when you overstuff your commitments into the finite amount of time that you have, like we're talking about there. So I really like that container analogy because that's is immediately where it took me to. Like, I, this, the human nature is to say, yeah, I can do it all. So I'll just cram it in there. It's fine. We'll figure it out. No, you won't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
think it's our societal nature. I don't know if that's human nature, but our
mm,
societal nature is that because if you go to other countries, they're a lot slower, a lot more relaxed, or a lot more. I am going to take 2 hours to eat, to have this coffee with this friend, or I am going to take 3 hours to have this family meal because that's important. We don't have to rush and rush. We understand the value of focused time and intentional time. So I
mhm.
think we have to realize from our American society that we don't have to do everything all the time at once.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't consider that. That's real good. Hmm. I got some thinking to do, man. And it's funny because I know I'm getting better with not only my time management, but having those conversations with my wife, considering what it is she needs from me, what it is I want and need, and making a plan, and then making it work, right? Not just making the plan and hoping it goes well, but putting in the effort to make sure that we get the those things. We talked the other day about um, having Sunday dinner again, right? It's something that we both experienced in childhood and we miss. So we're thinking in 2024 when we have some other things that are out of our way as far as like goals we're working on right now. We're just gonna invite the whole family over for Sunday dinner, right? We understand that some people will be able to make it, some people won't, but we want to have that with the open understanding that it's an open invitation. So when you can make it, make it. When you can't, don't worry about it. And don't feel some type of way that you couldn't make it one week. You're still on the invite list. Just come when you can. And I think that's going to be much better for our family going forward.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's definitely something my family did growing up. Um,
I remember.
so I think it's something that I mean, that's, I want to get into. I miss it. I know it's the, just like everything, like it's prioritizing and it's the time, knowing how much it takes to make that type of meal every week.
Hmm.
But the value of having those memories of, that time together and just that this is what's happening on Sunday, like regardless. So, I mean, there were some times where it was just our family, but a lot of times it was not. And it was
Right, right.
amazing. Um, so, yeah, I'm here for all that. But yeah, just making a choice, whatever that is, make that choice, stick to it, and be consistent. Um, and that might change, right? As you keep auditing, maybe, you do it for a year and then it's like, oh, the kids have all the things and we want to just use Sunday to chill out and rest just with ourselves. Um,
Yeah.
But as you get into that flow of doing it, it becomes easier for this
Mm-hmm.
particular reason or this particular example. Like, all right, we're going to have Sunday dinner. It's already budgeted. We already know what we're making. We have our menu down. Now we just have to make it happen. Um, you're going to end up cooking anyway. So,
Right.
so yeah, no, that's
Right.
dope.
Just cook a little more.
Yeah. So, all right, you got anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, if you guys felt challenged in this message or this pod, I feel like I'm teaching or whatever.
You are.
Please just reach out to us if you have any questions, comment, anything that you want to challenge us on. Any another view that we could take with this topic of auditing, or any accountants out there that want to give us a little bit more better ways that we can shore this up, or if you just agree or disagree, you can hit us up on IG, DM us, or go to our website, fill out the form at the bottom, um, or leave a comment on YouTube. We'll check those as well. So again, this is just so that we can have a community of brothers, of husbands, just working through this marriage thing together, so we can win in our marriage and keep moving forward and keep growing. All right. So until next time, peace.
Peace.